Thank you, Maria Rosa, and thank you to all the others presenters for presenting their views on this important piece of legislation. I mean, two of the questions that were posed for the discussion today are how to best create harmonized framework to tackle illegal content while protecting users' fundamental rights online, and how to ensure cross-border application of the new rules. And I will try and address this because these are exactly the questions that we are looking at and addressing in the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network. I guess many of our participants today don't know much about the network, so I'll just say a few words because we bring together over 200 experts from governments, from the largest internet companies, technical operators, the civil society, academia, and international organizations to address the tensions between the cross-border internet and national jurisdictions. The goal of the network is to create a collaborative environment where we can find ways to make competing jurisdictions compatible and interoperable. And recently, we compiled the work and the outcomes by this great group of experts into 3 toolkits that provide some of the answers to managing cross-border regulations of the internet. Most countries around the world are now looking at legislating online activities. And as was mentioned already, the Digital Services Act will be one of the most important pieces of legislation with potentially a global reach. However, in absence of global harmonizations of rules and regulations, conflicting and varying requirements by different states around the world are increasingly restricting the accessibility of information and services that has made the internet an incredible tool for cooperation, for communication, and for trade, effectively creating a splinternet. And this is now a major transnational challenge. It is extremely positive that the EU is regulating together as the 27 member states rather than through a patchwork of 27 or more pieces of legislation. However, there will be challenges to ensure a harmonized approach both within the EU and especially with third countries. And let me give you a couple of examples. The key objective of the Digital Services Act is to tackle illegal content. However, what is illegal in one country or one EU member state may not be illegal in another, and vice versa. The DSA will not harmonize the criminal codes of the 27 member states. So when issuing orders on restrictions based on illegality under the Digital Services Act, the respective authorities will have to specify the territorial scope of the restrictions. So in which country should the restriction apply in addition to their own? This is a completely new concept. And what is needed are what will be the criteria that they will use to reach these decisions? How will they ensure that they are not imposing their own standards on other countries in the EU, but also imposing their standards globally, as the orders in theory could be global? This is an extremely complex question that has serious human rights implications and that the experts in our policy network have spent a lot of time thinking about and working on. This is not the only challenge. The DSA will be implemented by at least 27 national regulators, and it will be essential to avoid a patchwork of regulation through different interpretations and different regulatory practices and procedures. In order to ensure interoperability and a harmonized approach to the rules, there will be a need for common understanding of the problems, a need for shared terminology, taxonomies, common procedures, common standards for recourse mechanisms, for example. Transparency was mentioned. What will be the transparency requirements between the states? And other tools for cooperation, so not just between the regulators themselves, but also between the regulators and platforms and with other stakeholders. This is something that we know because this is what we are working on in the network, and we have produced a number of tools and procedures for such interoperability. And what we have learned is that this is a complex process. It requires a multi-stakeholder input. It cannot be just left to the officials, the regulators, and the administrators, however competent they are. Effective and rights-respective solutions, technical solutions, also need to be inclusive of the views of all the stakeholders, the authorities, civil society, internet companies, academia, and the others. So to summarize, my key contribution to this discussion is that the Digital Services Act is by ensuring That there is at least one overarching regulation in the 27 EU member states is a great step at avoiding the splintering of the internet within the EU. But in order to have an effective, a coherent implementation that strengthens due process and human rights protections, there will be a need to create an inclusive multi-stakeholder process for its implementation. That process needs to create all the necessary tools for both cooperation within the EU and with third countries.